Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 685, our Legion of Superheroes Watch-Along. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge. I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim, the sensei of the whatnot, the master of speculation, the duke of the sultan of strategery, the bridge-defying, has officially submitted his application to the Legion Academy under the moniker of Stubbed His Toe Boy, but he remains the elder statesman of the podcast, Segulin.
How's it going, eh?
Jim, on this episode, we're going to be watching Legion of Superheroes together. So for those of you that have it, we will be counting down in the beginning, and hope you enjoy this watch-along. Please give us your feedback on these. We like doing these periodically, and hope you enjoy it just as much. We are sponsored, as always, by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Mr. Segulin, what is going on over at DCBService.com?
We have the Green Arrow Limited Series, issue 1 of 6, 50% off, only $1.99. We have Superboy, the Man of Tomorrow Limited Series, issue 1 of 6, also 50% off, only $1.99. And we have Steel, a celebration of 30 years hardcover, 50% off, only $19.99. Thank you, DCBS.
You know, here's where I feel those miniseries are really important, and it's important to support them. Look at Poison Ivy. Poison Ivy kicked off as a miniseries initially, was extended, and now is an ongoing. So they are responding to sales numbers and interest for these series, because it's an amazing series. We're going to talk about it next episode. But both for Green Arrow and for John Kent's series, it's going to be out there. I'm looking forward to those miniseries and hoping that they're really great, and I'm hoping that they can branch off into either more miniseries or an ongoing for both, because they're characters that I would love to read an ongoing. So I think that's cool.
And this Superboy one, this is Connor.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. We're getting both.
Again, right on, echoing everything you're saying about support these things, because maybe this can become an ongoing. I would love for an ongoing with Connor.
Yeah, ditto. I'm sorry. And yeah, thank you for correcting me on that. You're right. We've got because we do have a John Kent miniseries coming, right? I'm following this right? We have a John Kent one. You're right. This is the Connor one. And I'm excited for both. And they're both characters that I would like to read an ongoing. I'm a huge fan of Connor. I'm glad that he's back. So that part's going to be awesome. Over at InStockTrades.com, we have the deals of the week. Birds of Prey, the End of the Beginning trade paperback. $39.99 regularly, 50% off, only $19.99. If you haven't read Birds of Prey, huge fan of that series. And it's a great opportunity to be able to read that run in collected editions. They also have the Joker hardcover, Volume 3, $24.99 regularly, 50% off, only $12.49. These 50% off savings, when you start looking at that, especially if you're getting multiple card covers, they're great ways to be able to save money and read more, which is what I'm always all about. So I want to thank DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our show. Mr. Segulin, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plotlines, story twists, and whatnot of the Legion of Superheroes movie. So if you haven't watched the movie, I 100% recommend you hit pause, watch the movie, and then come back and join us. And that way you can better enjoy the show.
So, Jim, it's been a while since we've done one of these. We've got Legion of Superheroes, and it's a chance to do kind of a watch-along. And we've talked a lot during the last releases about some of the DC animated films, but we haven't really had a chance to go in-depth on one in a while. This one's a good one because Legion's an important group in DC. We've done some special episodes surrounding them. We've covered some of the series, but we haven't been able to give for its rich history, I think as much time as I would love to the Legion. So I think this is a great way to do it as far as let's touch on this animated feature. Now for you, I think you haven't watched an animated feature in a while. Am I correct?
Yeah, it's been a while since I've actually sat down and watched, to enjoy and watch animated. So I was like, I'm glad that you said, hey, let's talk about that, because then I'm like, I focus, I've got to watch this. And I was very glad we did, because this was a fun one. This is fun, man. You got to have, movies for me, and animated real life, whichever one you want, live action, whichever one you want to go with. First and foremost, I want it to be fun. I want it to be an enjoyment of my time.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't watch a lot of the dramas. I don't watch a lot of the gut wrenching moment. I want to enjoy myself, and it's an escape. It's one of the things that comic books help me with. I've got enough stress and trauma in my life. I don't need it on my TV. So for me, this was a great story in that, yeah, there was action happening, there was stuff that happened, and those moments I was like, oh no. But as a general rule, I was enjoying what I was seeing. And it's again, every time we cover a Legion story, I always say, man, I should read more Legion. Same thing with this one. When I got done with this, first thing I just thought to myself was, man, I should watch more. I should read more Legion. I should watch more of these things. I should set aside a time, at least one day out of the week, either before I work or after work, where I watch something like this. Because it'll help me, mentally, with just these enjoyment moments, this fun. We need to have laughter and enjoyment in our life, and I need to do that more.
One of the things that's interesting about this, it dawned on me during this, a lot of times there's the natural comparisons between Marvel's output and DC's output, right? It's the Marvel versus DC thing, which I get. I mean, I'm a fan. I get pulled into it too, but I love both companies. I love both sets of characters, and we could extend that beyond Marvel and DC. But one of the things that really struck me on this one as I was thinking about it, I'm like, unfairly so, DC gets, I guess, kind of labeled as having a lesser amount of output or a lesser amount of quality output. I think part of the problem is DC's has been putting out some quality stuff, and it's not getting the notice that it deserves, if I'm making sense. We're looking all at the big screen movies, and we're forgetting about things like, the CW output, which I thought was really great. Stuff like this, which really gets lost in the shuffle. I mean, we're getting like two or three of these a year. I forget the exact number, but they're always good. I think the spacing between them's great. They're well thought out, well put together, well produced, well written, well cast. I mean, it's everything, and this totally nailed it as far as being this original kind of Legion story that was unfolding. I felt like it pulled in all of the great bits that you would expect from a Legion story, but surprised you along the way with how it approached the story and the character development. Here's a great thing about this. If you're listening to this right now and you're wondering and you haven't picked this up, you don't need to know anything about Legion. They lay it all out right here. You don't need to know anything about Supergirl. They lay it all out right here. This is a great introductory film. And that part really stuck out for me on this one. This is what you do. This is how you produce a movie like this. And I hope we've got this new regime that's coming in, and I really like their Chapter 1 output and what they're laying out there. I hope things like this are being recognized as of need and of value to the future of DC programming, because these are important to me. You referenced the joy and the pleasure of being able to watch this and how it was kind of an escape for you. That's exactly what this was for me. That's what all of these have been for me, because they've been so good and so different. Every one of them's different. There's definitely a build to an ongoing storyline that they've been doing in some of them, where it makes sense, but they're far from beholden to every one of them having to be interconnected. It kind of goes to that. I'm hoping when James Gunn was talking about Elseworlds, certain things being labeled Elseworlds, I'm hoping there's room in their output for this type of thing to be labeled as Elseworlds. And to get more of these where, yes, some of them tie directly into their universe, their film universe they're doing. Others don't, and that's okay. I want them to be both. I want ones that are direct comic adaptations. I want ones that are their original ones that are just totally out of any form of continuity. And I want some that cleverly tie into what they're doing with Chapter 1. I hope we get that, because these have become I've got so many of these now. I was looking through them. I've gotten every one of them as they've come out, including the redo. There was a redo of a Superman one. And I'm like, oh, these are all so good. And none of those have been, I have to purchase them because of the show. They've all been ones that I'm so glad I own, and I've rewatched a number of them. What I like right now is I've got so many of them that it's really hard to go back and rewatch all of them because I like the choice. I like the fact that there's a lot of DC content that I have in my library now that I can refer back to. And this is one, I will rewatch this one again. Not for any other reason other than it just was good. That's something that's pretty important.
Yeah, it's funny because as I said before, every time we do one of these things, it motivates me to want to watch more of these. Just like take a day and say, this is my, after work, before I do anything, I'm going to watch a movie or I'm going to watch a TV show or do something like this. And, when you look at the animated side of it, it's always something that I really enjoy because they can do so much more on the animated, or they do so much more easily on the animated side than if it's a live action. Some of the special effects stuff, yeah, CGI is wonderful. They do some cool stuff, but I always like the look and the feel of the animated series because it is more, to me, of a living comic book than a live action of someone doing the role. It feels more natural, if you will, when it's an animated versus when it's a person for some odd reason. And granted, it should feel more natural with a living person, but for some reason, I like just the animated, even the different styles we've seen. This style, this artwork, really fits into my wheel well. So I was like, yay. But even when it's styles, it's not my normal groove. It feels more like a living comic book story than a living person, if that makes any kind of sense.
No, I get totally get what you're going with. As we're used to with monthly comics, there's an artistic interpretation, there's an artistic storytelling that's going on, and you get that from an animated feature. And they're interpreting, in some cases, they're interpreting a comic book story. In other cases, they're interpreting the storyboards of their particular story.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a much more natural environment. I like the fact that we can get this would, if we lost these animated features. That would be something that I think would be a big loss, just because it's another art form. Animation in general, getting animated films that aren't like 3D animated films like you get from Pixar or from, the studio that makes Minions. Why am I drawing a blank off of them? But I love them. And I want to be clear. None of that's a knock on that. I love the studios that are producing the great 3D animated features that are out there. I flock to them because of the fact that they've got that nice balance of something it's family friendly, but yet has humor in it that's clearly meant to be there for adults, and it really is a true family experience as far as what you can get from them. But I love the artistry of hand-drawn animation. I love Japanese anime because of that. I will admit I'm not as well versed in it, but I would say I'm more of a casual fan of it, but I love it. I mean, anything I've seen, I really enjoy because it harkens back to what you're talking about. It's everything comics have in them, right?
Yeah.
And that type of storytelling's fun. I love the different art styles that go on in animation. And these films, as they've gone along, have really embraced the opportunity to get different artists or different storytelling styles on screen. And it's been great. These are ones I would have gladly seen in the theater. And I think that's why they get sometimes... I don't know if it's lost in the shuffle. I do think it's lost in the shuffle because they're going to be direct to DVD, Blu-ray, and digital release. They're going to cater to a certain audience. They're going to miss the casual film-going crowd, which I don't know how it doesn't exist as much as it used to right now.
No, it doesn't.
We're at an interesting time, where it's how do you get the word out about these things? And I hope these episodes start to, for people who haven't watched some of these, do that. So we do these watch-along style. So, and part of the purpose of that is I listen to most of my podcasts almost exclusively in my car on my way to and from work. But I've listened to a wide variety of watch-alongs in my car and still enjoy them a great deal, even though the fact that I'm driving. But this is great also, I think, for people who want to watch the film and watch it with us. So we're right now looking at the DC logo. It's 8 seconds in to the digital release, which I'm sure translates very similarly to the physical release. So I'm going to do a countdown, and then we're going to go ahead and get started. So again, it's DC logo, 8 seconds in.
Okay, now we're going to do 3, 2, 1, click, or 3, 2, 1, click on the one.
3, 2, 1, click.
Okay.
Yeah. Boy, we're making this way too complicated.
It's the lethal weapon joke. I always like doing it.
Yeah, but for somebody listening, they're like, "Screw you, Jim."
I get that reaction a lot from people.
I'll say go. I'll go 3, 2, 1, and I'll say go. Okay, we'll do it that way, which I think I've done traditionally anyway. It is a good question. All right, 3, 2, 1, go.
All righty. Yeah.
Are you happy?
Yeah, I'm being difficult, but I enjoy it.
This opening with the Suns, and because I didn't know, I walked into this one, and I think it's one of the things I see previews initially. I didn't realize it was going to open up on Krypton, and I thought that was really great because such a big part of this story is Supergirl's attachment to her home, and it plays a pivotal part later on. So you really need these sequences not only to get to understand her, but her love for her mother, and these relationships are something we talk about in comics a lot, where we see the character reference their parents, reference their relationships, but you don't always get the screen time of why do they care? This interplay and her respect for her mom, wanting to be like her mom, wanting to, and maybe in some ways, be acknowledged by her mom or even surpass. It's such a thing that we can all relate to, right? You want to grow to that point where you get that nod from your parent. But this is her world, this is her planet, this is her life, and we get to see what's cool about it. That's the part that's fun.
Yeah, and I really dig the fact that when I was starting off here, and again, the whole thing, this is, it's called Legion of Superheroes, but technically it's Supergirl and the Legion of Superheroes.
Right.
So I like how they showed this. I like how they start with this. And again, if you have no idea who Kara is, I no idea of any of the Supergirl story, they're filling you in right from the beginning, right from the very beginning, and it puts you up to speed with everybody else. I think that, for me, was a great choice on the actual writing and the creation of this. That they're like, we're going to take a couple minutes. We're going to give this some time so you can understand why she is so, uncomfortable on Earth, present day. Why she doesn't get along with the people, why she has such an issue, and why the future is so wonderful for her, because the society she came from and the society she goes to, it really does, show it.
Dude, our park system needs to get the ability for you to say computer, water.
Yes.
I love the convenience of their parks. They're running around, and I love that they're doing this race, and they're both in their own ways cheating to try to get the one up on the other. Yep. It was that interplay, that fun interplay between mother and daughter, I think is really important. I also love the fact that this is establishing the relationship with Jor-El. We don't need to see Jor-El on screen. We don't need to see Kal-El here on screen. It's more important to see mother and daughter, but we're establishing a history. The fact that there is already a relationship there. She's been babysitting. She's got that relationship, and that's all you need. Early establishment of her knowing the baby.
And I love the fact that, she is military guild. She's not science guild. And I love the fact that they did make sure they did declare that she's military guild. Just because you think about just, the family L's, the House of L is very heavily the science guild. Well, the other side of it is also military. So I was glad to see that they did take the time to show her as military guild.
I love the art styling of Krypton here, where you get to see, it's very much classic film, classic TV, where you get to, that column theme that they have. I was glad to see that because I geek out at that.
Oh, big time. And I love the fact that they're trying to save everybody.
Yes.
Because a lot of times with the Superman story, it sounds like Jor-El only cared about his son and they only cared about their daughter. I love the fact that they took time with all these hyperpods, that they're based on Jor-El's prototype, and she's trying to build enough for all of the city of Argo to be safe. I loved seeing that. I was like, oh, that is cool. I'm glad that someone actually is saying, no, they're trying to save their society. But the reason only Kara can go, her pod, there's only one pod that worked. I was like, oh, man.
Imagine the heartbreaking... Wait, that was a split-second decision, too, which I really liked. I have never seen that before. That may be a thing that's been in comics before. I don't remember seeing it. I thought that was really well handled. This idea of, I've got to make a decision here. And she can't talk to Kara about it. There's no, I mean, we have to do this now. We have to act now. She makes a mother's decision at a split second there, knowing there's one pot. I can't go in it. The only person who can is standing right here. And if I talk to her about this, she's going to say no.
Right. Yep. Well, this is the classic, any parent would do anything to protect their child. And these moments always do tug at my heartstrings a little bit, where you have that final moment, with your parent, and they have a lifetime of stuff they want to tell you. And they only have seconds to do it. And they captured this very well with this final goodbye from her mother. Now, stuff like this always does tug at the heartstrings a little bit for me. So, and I liked seeing this. I was glad they did it. And I'm glad they took the time to give us this part of the story. For me, this is just as vital as all the building of who the Legion are, just as vital as the Clark and Bruce moments. This is, for me, a crucial part of the story.
It also enhances Jor-El's story in the sense that it's not just that nobody believed Jor-El. Some did. And some were, questioning it to the point where, hey, this is Jor-El. He knows what he's talking about here. Yeah. We've got to act on this. We got to do something. And she knew that the only way she could do it was in secret, but I'm sure she wasn't alone. Right. And it really opens up, when you think about it, potential other storytelling opportunities. Who else believed Jor-El? Did anybody else believe? Did anybody else do anything? There's a doorway that's been opened there with that I think is really interesting.
The only thing I think they missed out on this is showing the second rocket flying off. I think that would have been cool. If, as she's flying away and the planet's exploding, if we would have seen the second trail that we know is Kal-El flying off. I think that would have been kind of cool.
I think one of the reasons why they did it is they really wanted to emphasize, though, this idea that she was knocked off course and she arrived at a very, very different pathway than he did.
Right.
Because she arrived a lot later than he did. She was supposed to arrive at the same time, and that didn't work out that way for her.
Well, no, I think that would have been the neat thing if you'd seen the other rocket going the other direction.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I get your point there. I think that they were just, really razor focusing
on her. And again, I've got no issue with it. I have absolutely zero issue on pretty much on this whole story. Any little thing I would note is only just because of that would have been kind of neat.
Oh, sure.
Not having it didn't take anything away. By focusing solely on this, again, this is a great sequence of using, how they're all the producers, the story by, and all the different, the credits, the opening credits showing her ship going on its path and on its journey to, to Earth. So again, neat usage of it. So I'm not going to knock anything.
Beautiful opening credits too.
Yes.
I mean, I really liked the choice that we got to see, actually feel like we were going on an expansive journey with her, which was, it was a good way to use credits, as that's always a time that's taken away from a film anyway. And they used it to give you this sense of, I always feel like when I'm watching credits, okay, I'm going to get to the movie already. Come on, keep going. I'm glad to know everybody who's involved. I'm not knocking that, but I want to, get to this point that we're seeing right here.
The movie where she's standing there and
right.
In uncomfortable clothing, with a handwritten note from her from her cousin, yeah.
The art styling in this is tremendous. And it really showcases here that this is stylized. It's not overdone. It's got a definite flavor. I love that she's wearing a Flash shirt.
Yeah.
And just trying to fit in. The map part's great. It's map. It reminded me of that start of the Star Trek movie where we had... was it Scotty?
Scotty, yeah.
Computer?
Yes. Then they hand him the mouse. And I love the fact that, because that one, I love how you think, he's not going to be able to do it. And he just sits down and he's just a wizard on it. Oh, okay. He knocks it out. And I was expecting something like that from this, but we don't get that. She knocks over the side. She doesn't adapt. And I was like, that is awesome.
It does show, which is really important early on, it establishes why later on she's going to have a relationship with Brainiac 5 and sympathy.
Yeah.
Because of the way that those girls were talking about her in that moment, what a weirdo she is, how she doesn't fit, those type of things. It really is something that I really liked. I don't know why I didn't like the Solomon Grundy sequence opening up. I expected to be a fight between Solomon Grundy and Supergirl exclusively.
Yeah.
I didn't expect where it was going, that we were going to get like Batman and Superman in such a larger story with like teasing a larger story.
Yeah.
Which I really appreciate that this film feels like it's big, it's important, and that it's great to be able to establish that in what's an hour and 20 minutes, I think.
Yeah.
And they cover a lot of ground.
Yeah, and I love the fact that, because, again, I was immediately thrown off by Grundy using a laser. I'm like, what? And I love the fact that they bring it up later on, that this isn't Grundy's, MO. What's going on here? So for me, that was like, oh, that's cool that this wasn't a mistake. This was intentionally done to get you thinking that, because the heroes think that. I love when you get stuff like that plays out like that. Because, again, it does feel like this is more of the comic book. These are the characters I'm used to. These are the characters I'm comfortable with. This Kara is very similar to the Kara I'm used to. This Clark is 100% my Clark, and same thing with Bruce. So, this is kind of a neat usage of, again, this as another medium to express the same stories. And I love the fact that we get a nice, good fight sequence right off the gate. Right from jump, we had that cool moment, between her and her mother, but now we're getting into the action. So they got to keep the energy up.
I like that very early on in the film we're establishing, too, that we've got these secret people watching.
Watchers, yeah.
Yeah, and setting up that society that's good. I like that the events in the past have an effect on the future, and the events in the future have effect on the past, as far as there's that interplay. That always is great in DC stories when they're able to find that balance of bringing them in. I love the casting of Batman and Superman in this, too.
Yes.
Jensen Ackles plays a very good Batman.
He does a really good Batman. I'm happy with him as Batman, And again, we always have our the one voice of Batman that always rings in all of our heads. Uh-huh. But this is now my number 2. So now that since we've lost Kevin Conroy, this is now my Batman voice. This is the Batman I want to have. And again, same thing on this Cal. I love when they get the right voice for Clark. You need to have that. Combination of, I don't want to say combination of farm boy and, refined. It's a weird blend. You got to have that person that you want to be friends with.
Here's what it is. It's likable confidence.
Yes.
Darren Criss is playing Superman, and he's immediately likable, but there's a confidence to him. He doesn't feel like he's a newbie. He's somebody that you're like, this is Superman. This is a guy who's been doing it a while, but yet he's not pompous. He's not cocky. There's a balance. You got to really understand the character, and he really did a very, very good job.
I love how when Kara starts going back and forth with the shop owner, it's like, well, you can thank me. Thank you. You destroyed it. That for me, again, because we had that opening sequence, we can kind of see where she's coming from, why she doesn't fit in. And again, even the Clark and Bruce comments where you've got these two friends who are like, hey, what's going on with her? She's not she's not adapting well. And the whole time I'm sitting there thinking, guys, she's got superhuman hearing. She can hear what you're saying. And then, of course, we see that.
Here's the thing. We've all had this happen to us before, right?
Yep.
Where we've been in that moment, we've overheard something that we wish we hadn't. And you can repair these things. You can move on from these things. You can forgive these things, but you don't forget them.
Right.
And that there's a huge, this is a pivotal moment right now because it establishes her one pathway here. The people that she could relate to are the Justice League. The other superheroes that are in the universe. They're the only ones that can kind of relate to a certain extent of what life is like for her. And in this case, that's one of the things I love is Batman should be like more concerned about where Kara's state right now. Instead, he's right back in Batman detective mode.
Yep.
But Superman's doing the right thing. He's going after her to try and, because he does get it. Flash and Batman investigating this, and I'll jump back to what I was going to, but I think we've got to talk a little bit about Flash and Batman investigating this because this was something that was surprising to me. With it being a Legion of Superheroes story, I didn't realize we were going to be getting this in present day, this other Justice League story that's going on that was going to be dangled in this film, and it's not really resolved yet.
No. We got a teaser for the next movie, and I love that.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that this really was this was a DC Universe story where it pulled in all elements. And it's, as you said earlier, the past and the present, affecting each other. This was a great, just again, that wonderful overarching story of the universe itself. We have this great Legion story. We have this great Supergirl story, but it doesn't take away from anything else going on in the universe. That's something that I really loved about this, that this wasn't a one-and-done movie. Now, you can sit here, watch it, and if they never make another one continuing, hey, I got a great movie out of this. But, again, it's laying the groundwork for the next movie, This is building a universe here, and I love that.
Meg Donnelly plays Supergirl and Kara in this, and her interactions with Darren Criss, with the two of them playing off as Superman and Supergirl, they really did a great job on the Kent farm. Like, I felt like I was hanging. And there's something about the Kent farm, you gotta feel like it's this place you want to be. Like, I wanted to be sitting on the roof with them. Like, that looked just like so, it's such a beautiful, like, artwork in the way that they handled it. And it's serene and this calm place. And they're talking about some very, very real issues that Clark can't understand what it's like to be her because she grew up at Krypton. So she has a history there that he can't understand. There's certain pieces he can get. He gets what it's like to have the powers. He gets what it's like to try and fit in this world when you and have to keep that secret. But he can't understand what it's like to lose your planet because for him he was an infant. He doesn't remember that. Yep. And I related to this because I was like, I was adopted as an infant. Do I know what it was like with a previous family? No, of course not. I was an infant. So, very similar to Clark, I wouldn't understand that piece. And I was like sitting there going, wow, I totally get where she's coming from. In the sense that she's right, I don't get that. I had a student who told me that once. He got bumped between like 4 different schools before he came to ours. And this is a 3rd grader who looked me in the face and said, Mr. Whalen, you don't know what it's like. He said, I've been at 4 different schools. He said, I spend all the time worrying about, like, I'm making friends. Are they going to be my friends in 6 months? Or am I going to be somewhere else? That was a 3rd grader who told me that.
Oh, man, that's tough.
And I was, like, relating to this movie where she's telling this story, and I'm, like, sitting here, I'm like, I don't know, a kid pointed that one out to me. I'm like, You're right. There's certain things we just don't understand.
Yes.
And I thought that was cool. Well, the thing I love about Clark and how he's played in this, he was listening, though. And rather than sit there and pretend that he understands, he's trying to open up a new opportunity. You're right. This is challenging for you. You don't fit in here. Let's try something else. If this isn't working, instead of redoing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, what about another opportunity? And this makes boy, does the Legion's world look really cool here.
Oh, big time. And I love how it does have that kind of Krypton feel to it, but they didn't just recreate Krypton. It is its own groove, but you can understand coming from the one to here why that would be so comforting and so uneasy for Kara to make that adjustment. Why this would have more of a home feel to it than the backward Earth does.
Well, because it is Earth, but it's future technology.
Yes.
And that's the piece that there's the comfort level of. It's a little bit closer to home. And I love the idea that it's also this group, in the 31st century, it's this group of Legionnaires who are trainees, some of whom may never make it. So they're in the same place that she's at, where she's kind of questioning whether or not she can fit in and make it, because she just had that battle with Solomon Grundy that didn't quite go so well.
Yep. And it's funny because I was always thinking, why not bring in the Titans to help her get adjusted or other teen heroes? Mm-hmm. And to be honest, it probably could maybe work. But for me, this is such a better usage of the correct heroes for her. The correct location. And again, it's as you said, it's Clark listening to her and understanding, saying, hey, you're right, I don't know what's going on. And the teenage heroes really wouldn't be able to, understand what's going on with her as well.
They're also people that he knows, people that he trusts with her, people who've helped him in his life. There's a big difference where it's proof of concept, right?
Yeah.
Like he has that direct relationship. Whereas if it was Batman trying to solve this problem, it actually makes more sense for Batman to point her to Teen Titans than it does Superman when he's got the Legion and understanding Kara's unique history in a way that maybe Batman wouldn't be able to relate to.
I love these villains.
Oh, yeah.
Love this villain team, again, and how the past is affecting the future, etc. This for me was just one of those things. I was like, man, this is really cool, because I 100% was expecting once Clark took care of the future, I was like, oh, okay, we're done with the past. Then we get this sequence where it's once again Bat being the Bat, taking out the bad guys, and doing his thing. I was like, man, this is outstanding.
It's a good Batman sequence. I love the use of the Batarangs in this because I thought that was just a really great. We don't see Batman doing a lot of fisticuffs a lot because you're dealing with people that have guns. This is Batman having to take advantage of his equipment to take out their. And I love that the idea that like he takes out these people, but the Circle's like, you're not going to get any info from us. They are so dedicated. It's a cult. They are so dedicated they will kill themselves to avoid sharing what's going on. It's one of the more dangerous groups. The ones that are willing to do this are much more dangerous. Extremists are always more dangerous.
And they're all
dead, right?
Yeah, they all did that. They all killed themselves just so they wouldn't, talk or give up any information.
Mm-hmm. That's a passion towards something when you're willing to do that. I'm not saying I agree with the path, but it does make it more deadly, a lot more scary, a lot more dangerous that there is this group out there.
One of the things I loved about this sequence with Clark and Kara in the future is just how such a dramatic uplift in her voice and her personality and everything about all this.
Yeah.
It's one of those things they really, we're talking the voice actors really did a brilliant job of going from that really down, where, right before she's like, okay, just kick me out. Batman's right, I don't belong here. Mm-hmm. To just more of a friendly energy to her. And same thing again with Clark. And it was one of those things I was like, you really capture, that a really good voice actor, really good actor can capture, bring out that energy, bring out that, that humor, that fun, that life, and this was something I really digged on this sequence because again, it gets her knowing, gets you knowing who she is.
It's really interesting what gets her to want to be there. I like that Mon-El comes in, and boy, did they swerve me good with this.
Yes. Oh, God, that was wonderful. And again, I loved how she's like, okay, I'm here. Oh, yeah. And she's even doing the little flirty things and stuff like that. I was like, oh, my God, this is wonderful. And I'll tell you right now, 100% was not thinking it was a true swerve for me. I'll point out the point where I thought I kind of was like wondering if he was the bad guy, but at this point in time, I 100% did not even remotely think that. I was just like, and again, I'm so used to seeing Kara and Mon-El have that connection, have that, in relationships. So I was like, oh, okay, this is kind of cool. And again, seeing her be so happy and just the little flirting things they do with her playing her hair, and like, no, Clark, you can go. I'm fine. Go back. Thing. I'm okay.
I think there's a point where you're supposed to question him. Like they deliberately tease, like they throw the doubt in there. But boy, here they did a great job of, I thought they were going to be the best of friends. And I thought it was going to be one of these things where there's a flirtation between her and him. There's a flirtation between her and Brainiac 5. And, what is going to cause that to finally win out? I really, really enjoyed this.
Yes. Oh, big time. And again, good usage of Mon-El getting us thinking he's the good guy.
Yeah.
That he's not the bad guy in this, And I think that for me was something, especially like with this tour, how he's taking her through the stuff and just, being this great guy. And these two fit so well. I love the little thing where they're just slowly just flying along. And even earlier when Clark was showing her bringing her down, they weren't walking, they were just flying. And I always like that little just concept that for them it's, this is a normal mode of transportation.
I like the exploration of the Legion's world, where we get to see, just the various different areas, and the idea that there's this vault that, like, hey, you can't go in there.
Foreshadowing. Once we saw that, saying, okay, they're going to have to break into the vault.
Yep.
She's breaking into that vault for some reason. Didn't know why yet, but you 100% knew that she was going to break into it.
It was great.
Yeah.
Dawnstar, I was glad that she was one of the Academy trainees, even though, I'm used to her being one of the established Legion members. I'm glad that they had some that were more established, like Mon-El and her. Yeah, I think there was a nice balance of the ones that we traditionally think of as trainees and ones that, or trainees or misfits even, and ones that have been proven Legionnaires. It was a good balance, because you need those ones that are confident to add a balance to that group. What do you think about Brainiac 5's look? Because I remember in the comics, I'm used to Brainiac 5 having, like, hair and that kind of look. I actually liked that they made him look more like the traditional Brainiac in this for this story.
Yeah. Dude, I'll tell you, I actually really did like the look of this guy, and I thought this was a great opening sequence where she sees Brainiac attack. She goes into immediate combat mode. She's got to pretend, and I love the fact that she's not just doing this to beat him up. She's doing it because she's got to protect people. She immediately jumped in front of the others saying, Brainiac, he's got a weapon. Immediately went into that hero mode of defense and protection. And I was like, this is awesome. And I'm laughing because I know this is Brainiac 5, not Brainiac, so I know he's a good guy. So I was like, this is cool.
It is. Traditionally, it's one of the things that I really love that you get to see here, too, is Kara doesn't give up. She doesn't quit. And he is telling her, the more you hit this thing, the stronger it's going to get. Well, I love that she starts to recognize the fact that, okay, let it get stronger, let it get harder. And I love that she, like, eventually uses the strength as a way to get that thing off the ground. It was awesome.
Oh, man. That for me was, again, at first when she's just sitting there punching it, I'm like, come on, you're smarter than this. I'm like, oh no, that was the plan all along.
Yeah.
And I love when they do these swerves. They've done it a couple times in this series. Like, when Grundy shows up with the weapon and they bring it up, it becomes a story character later on. With this fight sequence, again, it's a character, part of it. And even later on in other fighting, you see that going on between them. It was just, I was like, this is cool.
Yeah. The effects of using her powers, too, where we get to see, Kara, again, is not necessarily a newbie. So, Kara knows how to use her heat vision. She's done some training. She knows who she is. Her powers are comfortable with her. This is about taking it to the next level. This is about really becoming a seasoned superhero. And I really like in the battle between the two of them, both her and Brainiac are skilled. So we get to see this really great combat sequence. This is stuff that I used to love in things like Brave and the Bold and Marvel Team Up, where you got to see there was reasons why two heroes would go at it. And you got to see these cool moments that are like dream moments.
And again, I love the fact that they're called the task on it. This for me was a great just sequence. Because one, it does lay the groundwork about, who voted him in. But also, I liked how, again, they're keeping this is the academy. This is an academy where they're learning what they're doing.
I like that we've also got certain members of the Legion that, because of the fact that they've got trainees, certain members are left as a council just to watch over their trainees while the rest of the Legion's out fighting on a mission. I always loved the scale of the Legion, the fact that this is a very big group. It's much larger than the Justice League. I guess if you count that the Justice League has reservists and things like that, they're similarly sized. But in the case of the Legion, everyone's in the Legion all the time.
Yeah.
So they pull various configurations, and if they need to go for a large-scale operation, they are all able to go and yet still have enough members that they can keep a few behind to keep training the trainees. And I thought that was really great. Timberwolf's one of my favorites. It was really cool to see him. Obviously because of the Wolverine-ish vibe of Timberwolf. Yeah. I've always loved the character, and I was glad that he was a big factor in this as well.
Yeah, and again, it was funny because I knew he was one of your main guys, so I was like, oh, Sean must be digging that. He's a character that I know, but I don't 100% know all the grooves of him, the ins and outs. So again, I'm still comfortable with what they portrayed here. You get an understanding of what this guy's like, and I love this moment between the actual Legionnaires where they're talking and they're breaking down Brainiac 5, who voted for him, and even breaking down every single clone has been a criminal, doing great groundwork as to the swerve. Why everyone thinks he's the main villain, why he's the bad guy, and this was obviously. I knew this Brainy wasn't going to be a villain, but I love seeing that. I love going and in my head I'm going, okay, who's going to be, what's going to happen here? How's this going to play out? And you see that initial animosity between Kara and Brainy, and they're like, okay, is something going to happen there? And great anticipation and great foreshadowing on what's going on here.
Shadowlass is one of my favorites, too. I'm glad we got to see her powers because she's really, really cool. I love the look, the character design, the power set, and the way that it works is all really cool. The interesting part is they're dealing with their focus on there's this big problem that the Legion is currently facing, and the rest of the Legion's not even showing up. So they're trying to figure out as a team, like, where is the problem? Is the issue on their end? Is the issue on our end? There's no communication with them. We've got this thing going on right now where Brainiac's here, but none of us voted for him. We can't find anybody who has, yet we were outvoted somehow. Huh? Yeah. I love this. He's overhearing all of this, and it sets the stage for he knows something more than they know. And I love that it sets this kind of thing. Is he
the bad guy?
Yeah. And I knew, as somebody who's known enough about the Legion, I knew that he wasn't going to be. But it's interesting. I love the way that this story's layered. And while he's not the bad guy, he is responsible to a certain extent. And I like that.
Yeah. Bouncing Boy, again, is another one of those characters that, when I initially started reading some stuff on Legion, I thought, but as time goes on, you get a better understanding of who he is as a person. And I think they did a good job with my understanding of who Bouncing Boy is, of bringing us, that character out. Because we do see the jokester, but there isn't, later on, we'll see an underlining thing where he is a Legionnaire. And it was kind of cool.
Yeah. Interesting with the triplicate girl, because you got to establish pretty early on like a fondness for the character, and they make her fun and memorable. It's really important right now because she's not going to be able to get a ton of screen time, so it's good to do that. I also like that they bring in characters like Prody and things like that are unique, like quality of Legion. Even things like quirky characters like Arms Fall Off Boy.
Yeah.
They're characters that are really important to put in this because it gives kind of the flavor of the Legion, the character of the Legion, the fact that you have these unique any story I've read about the Legion, I've always been like, and who's that character? And who's that character? And it's something that's unique. I read a lot of team books, and what the draw for Legion has always been, there's this unique pulpy kind of flavor to them that no other team's able to replicate in the way that Legion does. And I think it has to do with that embracing the future. It's stuff I love about things like Flash Gordon and stuff like I really like explorations of this kind of era. And there's freedom to Legion that because it's so far flung in the future, there's certain things you can do and certain ways you can change it that you can't do with other books because they've got to be more set in present day.
Oh, yeah. And again, I love the notion of where the fact that there's only going to be one opening for the Legion, and it lays out there even it was Triplicate Girl who said, "Hey, we're just waiting list at best." Really does set for what's going to happen in the future. And I thought that for me was a really cool moment, and especially even this more animosity between Kara and Brainy.
Yep.
They keep laying these down, and I was like, this is awesome. Because again, it's, this really cool just building up a relationship between these two. And they were implying it and teasing it the whole time. And I'm wondering, I remember thinking, are they going to do this? I'm like, oh, that's going to be kind of cool. Because, again, no idea that they were actually going to do that. I thought that, for me, was a great way to use this. And, again, getting into the physical combat simulator. Brainy was one up on the classroom. Well, 100% seeing this, I knew exactly what was going to happen. Kara was really going to steal the show because this is something she's really good at. She's military guild. She's the warrior. She's combat. And I love seeing this come out.
This also pays off later, though, because what you see is a Kara evolve. She's very used to punching things, using her heat vision. There's a point later where she can't do those things, and she has to improvise. She has to adapt. And it was great to see she is learning from the other people that she's working with in how she's reacting to things. And I thought it was really cool.
I love the fact that the debate about who knows more about robots.
Yeah.
Kara, who's from Krypton, or Brainiac 5, who is a descendant of a cyborg. And again, played out brilliantly where he was right. But to actually accomplish it, they had to work together to save the day. It was a really cool moment of, again, a starting showing of growth of who Kara is and a growth of who Brainy is as well.
Yeah, because you got to establish this relationship pretty quickly.
Yes, and in a couple sequences, a couple minutes, a couple failures, a couple moments, they do a good job with it. And that was something that I really enjoyed on this. Again, there is the romance, there is the rom-com element of this that kind of cracked me up in this superhero movie that it was enjoyable and it needed to be done.
You've got to see the similarities between the two, and that gets established pretty quickly. And also the idea that as they're continuing to interact more, you see these sequences where the two of them are very complementary of each other in their in how they react to situations. This bit was really, really great with the two of them.
They're a good tag team.
Yep.
And again, it's one of those things where sometimes you take two strong individual people, and if you work them together, if they don't have that right groove, they're just two very powerful people. Clark and Bruce are a great tag team because they complement each other well.
Yep.
Same thing like with Diana and Clark. Again, two very good complementary to each other. So this was a neat combo of Brainy and Supergirl working together. I liked it.
Initial adversaries can become the best partners because they spend so much time trying to pick each other apart that they start to learn each other's strengths and weaknesses. And it's really, really great.
Yeah.
So I love that the two of them are getting chastised now. But if you'd been an observer, you're sitting there saying, hey, wait a minute. There's some progress being made in this relationship here. I get that they trashed a room and all that, but not all is lost here. Why don't you look back at what they actually did, what actually happened in that sequence, and there may be something to build off of here.
Yeah, and again, even just, between the two, not even just between the two of them, just as heroes working together, as heroes improvising. When that machine was going crazy, everybody was ducking for cover. These two are actually solving the problem.
This is a pivotal sequence right here.
Yeah.
Because it goes back to what Kara was dealing with earlier in the film, where people were talking about her. Now, all of a sudden, she's hearing the same thing said about Brainiac, and she's having to reflect on that. Yeah. And now she's really relating to him from a sympathetic standpoint of, crap. Like, he's in the same spot I'm in, and all I'm doing is feeding the beast. And, she's realizing that she's defensive of what happened before. I love that she noticed that same crew.
Yep.
Wait, I've seen these people before.
It immediately goes into the X-ray vision mode, immediately goes looking, saying, hey, what's going on here? It was kind of a neat thing. And again, the next leading into the sequence of Triplicate Girl looking for the missing Prody, I loved how this played out. Because again, it seems like a relatively innocent thing, which has this tragic ending to this character. And I was like, what the heck? Yeah, it was one of those things that really threw me off guard.
And her being the one to do it makes perfect sense because she's the only one that can be in multiple places at the same time.
Exactly.
So she's able to do what everybody else is doing. So the logic of her being the one here, I love that this explained. Yeah. This is the sequence where we start questioning Mon-El.
Yes, 100% when I saw Mon-El there, and then I saw the bad guy behind her, fry her. I was like, wait a minute. I'm wondering, because again, Mon-El with the hearing, the super, senses, he would know this fight's going on.
Right.
And that's what I was like, because initially I'm watching it, you're thinking, okay, it's the bad guys that shoot her. No, it was heat vision that got her. And I like that because, again, this is where the question happens, in my brain where I started questioning. Then you get this moment where Supergirl's practicing what she's going to say, how she's going to apologize to Brainy 5. For me, it was like, okay, Brainy's going to be the hero. Mon-El's going to be the villain. Oh, that is cool. And I absolutely loved how they played that out.
And I'm usually not a fan of that. With Mon-El being the villain and that type of thing.
Oh, yeah.
But yet, in this story, it was the perfect choice because it had to be something where you care. And you felt betrayal. And Mon-El feels like betrayal. So that's where it worked for me. It was really, It was a clever choice and a strong story choice.
Now, one of the things I loved when she initially, when Supergirl initially goes up against, initially confronts Brainy, there's not, when she's like, hey, what are you doing? It's not
accusatory.
It's not an accusational tone. It's legitimately, hey, you okay, kind of thing. I thought that for me was a really cool thing. And then the Legion immediately reacts poorly towards Brainy 5, assuming he's the bad guy.
Right.
That for me was a great sequence because, again, we saw Kara was going to apologize. Kara wanted to, make things right with him, and again, more people accusing him without the facts. It was awesome.
There's no logic. And I love that she's analyzing the situation. What this does really well is it shows her brains.
Yes.
Because she knows him well enough that she's analyzing the situation. And she's like, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. This guy is really a 12th level intellect. Why would he?
Yeah.
This is so stupid. They're so blinded by their own ego. And you see a little bit of that with her where she's even in her apology to him. She's like not really willing to fully apologize. Yeah. And then finally gets to the point where she's like, I'm just going to apologize. I'm just going to be done with it and not add the other pieces in, which I think is human, right? We all do that. Not willing to quite let go.
Yes. And again, it's one of those things where you learn as life goes on. Life lessons teach you to sometimes you just got to say, hey, I was wrong. There's no, hey, I was wrong, but you were right. No, it's flat out, I messed up.
Sometimes time does that too, right? Because you got your initial emotion of anger and that type of thing. Then you got to take a breath and you're like, all right, I can let this, how important is it to me to win this?
Yeah. And again, as you said, I love, Kara using her brain here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The fact that that plan that they're laying out is stupid. One thing Brainiac 5 isn't is stupid, I
love that Prody reminds me of the Shmoo.
Yes, he does.
I loved the Shmoo as a kid. I always loved Prody. Prody's a great character. And I'm not trying to over cookie cutter Prody. Prody's a very unique character, but I just love that kind of, it just adds a different kind of thing to it. Yeah. And Prody's trying to communicate in the best possible way because Prody saw what happened.
See, all Prody had to do is just make himself look like Mon-El. That's the thing I don't understand why he didn't do that.
I don't know.
Yeah, but hey, and again, Kara doing investigation her style, literally breaks in. Mm-hmm. She doesn't, hack it in. She's the puncher,
The Dark Circle here and getting more and more information on the Dark Circle was really interesting because this is the point in time where I needed to know more about them.
Again, yeah, great timing, great pacing on this stuff. Telling us who these villains are, telling us who the Circle is, why, we saw them back in present day and we're seeing them in the future time. This is a group that's been around for a lot longer than anyone knows. Over centuries, they've been doing this kind of stuff under different names, under different guises. but always the same circle, always that same, that whatever their end goal that they have. And I love how, again, we're getting enough information that it continues on the story. It's tying everything together. Brilliant pacing on this.
Here's the question. They vanish at time to time. How many of them were killed, to keep the secret, and then the Dark Circle was rebuilt,
Yeah.
That's the part that I think is interesting. It has different names because the group that was that previous group was wiped out because of what we find out later about who their actual leader is. It was something that was cool.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I dig it. And again, I love the fact that Kara is there, how she's like, she knows what's going on, or she knows who she can trust and who she can't, and she knows, hey, I can trust Brady. He's not a bad guy.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is the first time she's unveiling to anybody that I've seen them in the past and I've seen them in the present. And I think they're a part of all this. So this is interesting because he knows that she's right.
Yes.
So this is a point in time where he's got to make a decision right now to trust somebody. That part's great.
Oh, yeah. And again, this with the whole miracle machine, everything that's happening, how this is their end goal. This right here is what the Dark Circle's after. That's the weapon hidden in the vault.
Yeah.
That's the massive weapon that the Dark Circle has been planning for and going for centuries. And I was like, oh, this is cool. And I love the fact that Kara calls him on it saying, hey, why didn't you just tell them? He's like, they're not going to believe me. And I was like, you know what? I agree with him.
I do
Normally,
too.
I'm a guy who's like, hey, you got to throw out the information, throw out the intel, communication. No, he's right on this one. They never would have trusted him.
My family is
with everything he said.
My family is psychotic, and I need you to let me take this weapon of mass destruction. Because the logic of how he laid that out, I thought was really, really great. Yeah, that part it was really strong dialogue choices. The writing on this is tremendous. It's you have to get the right lines in there, you have to get the right emotion conveyed, and you have to have the right acting talent. I mean, it's being a voice actor on these animated features. It's really, really critical to get people that are able to convey a lot through voice. Emotion, inflection, things like that, and really convey it quickly. And we've mentioned multiple times throughout this where the acting talent's been able to do it. And I think it's harder to do when you're just using your voice.
Yeah, and again, I love seeing Kara trust him. No, okay, I've got you. This for me was a great team up of these two, and I was like, this is awesome. I really was, pulled into this movie, pulled into this story, and they did a great job of keeping everything going with a nice blend of humorous moments for the action, for the character development, for the romance development. They did a great job on this. This is a superhero rom-com that I really enjoyed.
Yeah. This goes back to the sequence you were foreshadowing earlier. They gotta break in.
She's gotta break in. She's gonna have to do it. And again, makes sense that Brainy and Supergirl are going to team up they're going to need his brains, her brawn to do it. And I was like, okay, this is a cool combo. And then when Mon-El shows up, it 100% locked in any thought of like, okay, yeah, he's definitely the bad guy.
Yep. I also like that we see the gradual softening from both sides. We see it from Brainiac and her. It's important to do that gradually throughout this story because of the fact that if you want to hit that point where you feel like these two are interested in each other, you can't just jump to that. You've got to build it. And boy, do they build a lot of storytelling in this hour and 20 minutes as far as character development and growth. That's hard to do in this short span, and they did a really good job of doing it.
Now, part of me wonders, does Brainy suspect Mon-El? Or is he just upset that he's joining because he's really starting to realize he has feelings for Kara?
He's upset that he's joining because he's really starting to have feelings for Kara.
Okay. That's the feel I had from this. And so I'm glad that, again, they're portraying it well. But there is always that side of me that wonders, when does Brainy realize it?
If there's any suspicion, any at all, it's very background.
Yeah.
It's certainly not in the forefront at the moment. He was jealous in that moment because he saw the Mon-El and Kara alike. I mean, they're both, very similar power sets. There's a lot more they can relate on each other from. I could see that being a source of jealousy, and it was important to establish there.
Yeah. The Tetris puzzle, I like that. Again, I always like when the security codes are something different and some type of futuristic thing where it really would need to have, you would need a level 12, a 12th level intellect, to actually break the code.
Right.
Because you think about it, if this is the vault of the most dangerous weapons known of all time, you would need this level of security. And it's not just about the mental toughness, but it's not just a puzzle, but there's also the mental drain on you. So if you're a regular person, you're not going to pull this off. So this for me was a really cool puzzle. And then they're like, okay, now we're running out of time. Now the drones are going to start fighting, but you can't break the drones because that just disrupts the whole room. So you got to subdue them. And I was like, oh, this is an awesome. This really is a great, a true test of these guys, these heroes, and a really neat. I understand why the Legion will put so much faith in this alarm security system.
And this also shows Brainiac's leadership ability, because he's been a Legion leader before. I mean, certainly not in this film series, but we've seen that in comics, and you get why it worked. He is able to analyze a situation and offer strategic advice on the fly.
Yeah,
and it really adds to his value, and that reaction's really great. He made this team more effective just by being there.
Yeah, oh, definitely. And again, it's funny how they really did need Mon-El. If this had just been Kara and Brainy, they wouldn't have done it. I don't think the two of them could have pulled it off. They needed Mon-El also on the physical side just because of all these drones and all that. So I like that. I really did enjoy this sequence because sometimes to me, a safe, the vaults where these superpower things are too weak. This one definitely is not too weak.
It's also good storytelling, though. Why would Mon-El risk revealing himself? Because of the fact that this needs to have, this needs to all pay off.
Yeah.
So he takes a risk right here to join them in this sequence because, hey, I believe in the two of you. Let's make this work. Brainiac's been manipulated through all this. And yes. I love that this is all part of the continued manipulation. He also needs to be there at the end game.
Yeah.
Because that's where the swerve needs to take place, where it's like, you think you got here, but nope.
We certainly did. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I love the turn. I love that moment right when you realize, oh, he's the bad guy. Yeah. Starting with a Kryptonian knife right in the chest or right in the gut to Kara, taking out the more powerful of the two of them. Right there, Mon-El's, you take out the most powerful one first. And I love that he went right for the kill shot, and then he takes out Brainy. I was like, this for me was a great usage of a villain. Really a thinking villain. He's not that. He's not just a pretty boy. He had a strategery to him, and I like that.
The thing is, though, I also love that they underestimate Brainiac.
Yeah,
and also don't understand him. This is a mistake Brainiac would make. Because of the fact that he thinks that his clones are inferior and things like that, he would underestimate the clone. Ego sometimes gets in the way.
Yep.
And that's probably his biggest thing is what he didn't see coming is Brainiac has more, if for lack of a better term, humanity.
Yeah.
And because of that, his focus on making sure Kara's taken care of and winds up paying off dividends later.
Oh, big time. Big time. And again, I like this sequence with Timberwolf where you really do see him taking out, the Legionnaires taking out multiple bad guys and how they had to basically get swarmed before you could actually win, before they're actually able to take out the circle. Actually the circle wins in this one. And you see them locking up. You see the different full-time Legionnaires in the cells, whereas the recruits, again, Mon-El's telling them, hey, these guys are scrubs. We don't have to worry about them. So they're not going to put them in the tight security fortress. Well, they're going to actually put them in the limited cells.
Yeah. And I love that crew is also taking advantage of, okay, they're not considering us important. Let's hide.
Yes.
And that part's great. Mon-El's pleading with her. And in a sense that I really believe that Mon-El believes what he's saying here, that Kara could be one of them, and could join the. Why wouldn't you try to recruit her, right? And he does it multiple times where he tries to recruit her, and you get the point. Like if she becomes a believer, that's not necessarily such a bad thing. Boy, I love that this knife sequence with Brainiac pulling it. This is going to hurt. Yeah. But he's got no choice. He's got to do this because it's bad enough when it goes in. When it comes out, it's worse.
Yes.
And it sets her up for, more pain. That was something that it was a subtle piece, but they handled it extremely well.
Yes.
They did that very well where there's not just one focus in this. They're able to have scenes that have depth to them. And that's really awesome.
Well, and again, it's a good usage of the villainous monologue.
Yeah.
Where he's explaining why he's doing this, and you can understand it, but also having the subtext of him pulling the kryptonite knife out of her. Just that little moment between the two of them, and then the reveal of the true villain, the true leader of the Dark Circle being Brainiac, the original Brainiac. And I was like, oh, that is outstanding. And I was like, man, this for me is an absolute wonderful, again, story coming full circle. Story, no pun intended. Just the riddles from the clues laid down in the past playing out in the future, because this was the head that the original Dark Circle were trying to steal, that Batman initially stopped. So I was like, man, that is cool.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I thought was the layers of the past and the present and the future all playing in to each other in this. I thought was really, really great. The idea that this Dark Circle had been around long before that and been really established was something that was really great. The Miracle Machine piece, boy, I love that the thing that they're seeking, you get why anybody would seek it, right? And you also get the attraction of it. You can change things and bring people back and even bring whole worlds back. That attraction is something interesting. So, there's always that God mode thing of, well, I can do it, but I'll do it differently, right? And my way will be the best.
I'll do it for the right reasons. I won't do it for personally. I'll save all these people. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And again, there is such the line. What's the line? The road to hell is paved with good intentions. And you really do see it with this. Now, Brainiac, the old OG Brainiac, the original, he's 100%. It's pure evil intentions. He wants to change the world to his image, which would be horrific. But later on, we'll see Kara get tempted with it for the right reasons, for positive reasons. Any hero, any person would be tempted with this. And again, even Mon-El, you kind of understand where he's coming from, what he's thinking, why he's backing the Circle, looking for a pure order. The world will be a much better, in his mind, he's like the universe will be a much better place, but he's not thinking beyond just wanting the universe to be a better place. It's not that. It's even, it's Brainy. Come on, he's going to change it in his image, how he wants it, not a pure, perfect, orderly world.
Remember the Jeff Johns run of Superman, where there's that Brainiac storyline that started to introduce more horror elements to the character?
Yeah.
Boy, did this kick it to 11 or what? The heads all over the place, and the idea that those are living entities. It's the living clones. I love that Brainiac 5 uses that.
Yes.
And it's something that, he's analyzing this situation right now. And I really love, in rewatching this, that's part of the piece that's fun, is going, okay, when did certain things start happening?
Yes. Yep. And it's funny because, you think back, and I love how you mentioned earlier, Brainiac 5 has a little bit more humanity in him. And that's actually why he's able to defeat Brainiac, why he's able to actually win in the day is because of that.
Yeah.
That nature of him. Now, part of that, it's not just because he's a 12th level intellect. The intelligence does, 100% help him, but it is his fact that he's able to interact with people. He's able to react and, understand the nature of people. I think that for me was a really cool moment, that he's not just the cold, calculated machine. There is a man there. And I love that it's, Supergirl who really does help bring that out in him. And again, as I said earlier, this is a superhero rom-com, but it's a really good superhero story that has me going, I really am enjoying this. I want to see these two kids get together. I want to see them work it out, And those are always, for me, the funnest stories, when you're sitting there with a hero and it's not just, I need the heroes to win. You want these two to win. I don't want this ending with one of them sacrificing themselves.
Do you really look at it as a rom-com, more as a romantic drama? And that's not me arguing with you. I'm just curious because totally agree with the romance elements of this. I think are very strong.
Rom drama could work as well. Rom-com, I kind of throw all those together.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not as ha 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 funny laugh.
That's what I'm saying.
So I could see why, but you could say rom drama. In this, but again, it is one of those things where there are those little funny moments, and part of me says rom-com because you had that classic where they're like at each other, and then they're like yay, so that's kind of more of the rom-com, I guess, feel for me.
My reason for questioning that is I just want to be clear for people maybe who are listening to this and haven't seen it. This is not a comedy.
No, 100% not a comedy.
There's comedy elements in here, yes, but they're subtle. It's not this is not a ha 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 blah ha ha film. This is this is a dramatic story that's being told here. Yeah. But I get where your explanation I think is incredibly valid. That's really the reason for my clarification. I know some people, they listen to these and make a decision if they want to watch the film after that, and I would say, this is not slapstick.
No, 100% not slapstick. So, and again, this is a great superhero story. And that's something I really am enjoying on it, is the fact that this feels like I'm watching a comic book come to life. So for me, this 100% is an absolute, a true superhero story. The romance element between Rainey and Supergirl didn't take away from the superhero stuff. Didn't take away from the energy and the excitement that I get from this. So, and I love the fact that now we're getting the rest of the Legion. The rest of the Academy show up. You got Phantom Girl. You got 2 of the 3 Triplicate Girl, and then Invisible Kid comes on the scene. And you're like, all right, we're starting. And again, it was one of those neat things where you could see what's going to happen. You could see that the Academy kids are going to be the ones who have to fight back. And it laid it out. When that first sequence when Triplicate Girl said, "Hey, we're afterthoughts. We're the B squad at best. But you saw it coming. But I still got that hoorah kind of hero moment when they're like, it's up to us. We got to step up.
That's when you tell if people are real heroes. You can go through all the training that you want, but unless you're able to carry it out in practice, unless you're able to utilize it in a real world situation, they're developing a team right here. Like, I would follow this crew into another movie. Even if there was no 100%. Other Legion, I like this team.
Yes, 100% would follow this team, into battle, and another movie on this one. I'm all in on that. And again, I like how it's the Legion Academy going in. The underestimated people are the ones they're pulling in that they have to do.
Because they're the only ones they can grab because of, to your point, you mentioned it earlier, they're in these lesser cells. So there's an opportunity to quickly snatch them and utilize them. And I like that even Arms Fall Off Boy, who I like sitting here like, what a stupid power set.
Yes.
You know what? He is cool in this.
Again, another hero steps up. He's the detachable kid.
Yeah.
If you think back to the Suicide Squad, we thought he was a ridiculous character, and he kind of was. Arms Fall Off Boy, he's making a comeback. And again, I love this usage of Dawnstar.
Oh, yeah.
Because again, they need the Legionnaires. Yes, they have a plan. Yes, they're going to do it, but they need to call for backup. And I was 100% thrilled that they're like, we've got to find the Legionnaires. And it's Dawnstar who's reaching out. She's flexing her muscle, showing us what she can do. Her teaming up with Brainy to send out the SOS. I was like, oh yes, I cheered out loud when I realized they're calling in. They're sending out the SOS, letting the Legion know, hey, this is what's going on. Now, they're not just waiting for them to show up and save the day. They've got to do their job. They got to do their part. But for me, this was a cool moment.
Yeah. It's every element of this is something that is really drawing me in. It's I love that it's the B Squad that is really I'm captivated by. Yeah. I want to see them win. I want to see their victory. And they become more effective. Invisible Kid, even the fact that, he referenced earlier, I saved all of them. I turned them all invisible. Yeah. Which was something he said earlier he almost got to. This was the fight I was waiting for, Mon-El Supergirl.
Oh, yeah. Oh, big time. And again, it did not disappoint. They did a good job with, using, jumping from the Brainy to the Mon-El Supergirl fight, going back and forth, showing us all the action and just the general energy going on in this fight. This, for me, was a really cool moment. I liked how this story really balanced these physical action moments with the story advancement stories, with the character developments. They did a great job with that.
There's multiple rounds to this fight, too, which I really like. Yeah, I like that we get this initial one right now, but then we're going to get to the other one later, which is really great.
Yeah.
I love that the two of them are using, again, you could let emotions overtake you. This is where you start to become more seasoned.
Yeah.
And that part I really, really liked. And I like that they recognize in this moment, let's let the rest of the squad take care of this. We've got a bigger fish to fry. We've got to stop Brainiac because this is the end of everything. And that part is so awesome in this.
Well, and again, with the plan, these are the only two really, of that team, these are the only two who could have done this.
Right.
They needed these two, whereas you trust in your teammates to fight Mon-El. And Mon-El is much more powerful than any of them individually. But when you fight as a unit, which is what they were doing, you can win.
And here's the thing. It's not about whether or not they beat Mon-El there. They need time. Yes. They cannot focus on Mon-El right now. They need to be able to buy time, and because they don't actually beat Mon-El.
No. Well, Brainy beats Mon-El.
Right.
Brainy takes out those who are strong enough to pose a threat.
Right.
Again, this is Brainiac. He's going to turn on you, dude.
And that part was, and seeing what was happening here, that part was really, really great.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I love that. And again, this giving us a glimpse of what the Miracle Machine can do in the wrong hands, where he's changing everything around in his likeness, in his vision of what the world, what the universe should be. Really, again, shows the power levels of the machine. If you're going to call something a Miracle Machine, it better have this level of power, and it does. And I love the fact that just as you're thinking, well, just as he's thinking, he's winning. I am the supreme being. He's gloating. He's got that villainous rant going. It's Brainy 5 who takes him down. And it's not taken down really with a punch. It's taken down with the intelligence. It's taken down with the strategy. It's taken down using his own body parts against him. I absolutely love this moment.
Well, it is Brainiac recognizing the fact, I'm different than all of them, but I understand all of them.
Yes.
And what he understands about all of them is ego.
Yep.
And where he's advanced from the others is not so much in his intelligence, it's in the balance of the fact that he is more human, for lack of a better way of putting it. He is able to care about others, whereas these don't.
They only care about themselves.
Right.
Every single one of them only cares about themselves. And that's the thing where, he played that against each other. It's the played them like a fiddle. And
yeah.
I love this sequence because, again, the villain's getting taken down, one by his own little hubris, by his own personal defects, but also taken down because the hero recognizes that. The hero is able to step up and say, hey, this is how we fight this. But it's also a 1-2 punch with Brainiac 5 taking down Brainy and Kara stepping up to deal with the Miracle Machine. I loved how, again, it's got to be it's a team up between these two. It's not just one person doing it, because when he's initially talking about there can only be one, who's that going to be? part of me is wondering, is Brainy 5 going to try to take over? And I'm like, oh no, Jim, you're an idiot. It's going to be Kara who steps up. And I loved how that played out.
The danger of the machine is a big one, though, because where do you stop? Even if you tried to dabble a little bit, well, then what's to stop you from dabbling a little bit more and doing this for this friend and doing that for that friend? And now all of a sudden you're doing the exact same thing. It's where that machine is incredibly dangerous. And it's one of the things that I really loved about this. I like that he recognized that maybe he's not the best choice to take over the machine.
Yeah.
And he's got to trust her. And that part was really, really interesting, and shows again an evolution of a character, of growth. I like that she tries to do what
Punch
she does
first,
which is so her, right? And if I had her power set, of course, that would be the first thing I'd go to, because your invulnerability and your strength is something that you can count on, and it traditionally works.
Yeah, and so she's got to go beyond that. And again, this is, I love this sequence when she steps up and she starts to interface with the computer, with the miracle machine. For me, this was a great sequence because, again, the groundwork that was laid in the very beginning between her and her mother, between her and her desire to have Krypton back, to have her people back. Part of it is her mom. But part of it is also her people. Part of it is she could be the savior of Krypton, all that wonderful society. Think of all the great things they could do. I could bring Krypton back. I love that that's her, one of the things going through her head, and what she's, thinking, all this wonderful stuff I could do.
But it won't stop reality from breaking. And I like that Brainiac is the one there to be the counsel. That relationship between the two of them, this is a true partnership between the two that's established so quickly. The writer on this just really did a great job of nailing this story, because that really was a key in this. I will admit I don't understand what parts fall under writer and director when you do stuff like this, but boy, is this one well produced. This is a top-notch production.
Oh, big time. And again, it's tugging at the heartstrings just when you need it. I loved, this final moment between mother and daughter.
Yeah.
It just as powerful as it was when she was first knocking her off, and when she was first, sending her off Krypton. You have this great moment between them where you have that final, goodbye.
Yes.
And Kara is able to, she has that closure. And that closure she was always missing, in her struggles and her dealing with the primitive Earth,
And so many people don't get that. I was very lucky with both my parents. I got that. Sometimes life doesn't let that happen. There's a reality to that. It's lucky when you have this moment. This handling of the machine, even that has given her a gift that, most people don't get.
Oh, big time. And I liked how, again, this really cool ending where it's Kara, stepping up, taking control, fixing everything, getting it back to the way it was, sealing the rift, sealing all that. This was a really cool looking moment, as well as going on with the story. And I'm glad they didn't rush anything like this. They gave the story enough time to play this out. Part of the reason we had an emotional reaction, or I had an emotional reaction, was because they gave us enough groundwork, enough laying out the history of who these people are. I had a good comfort level with her relationship with her mom, or her relationship with Krypton. It was absolutely wonderful.
Well, they did a really good job with the artistic visual effects. I know when you start doing stuff like that, it starts to, you've got to work your budget and your budget of time and budget on money, as far as making these type of things happen. And they really made good choices on when to leverage this type of thing. I know in an animated feature, sure, there's some cost savings in the fact that it's animated, and that you're able to do that. But there's still time and money devoted, quite a bit of time and money devoted to sequences like this. Yeah. And boy, it was beautiful. That was a beautiful sequence, with showing how the machine works and the undoing of the machine, and the moment with the mother.
Yeah. All big time. Yeah. And again, I really am happy that Brainy and Kara are together. How they're, it was a neat ending, but also loved seeing just the bad guys getting taken down. The end of the well, not the end because the circle remains unending. But I loved seeing the team play out. I loved seeing the B squad, if you want to call them, whatever you want to call them, taking down the bad guys, working together as a team.
I like the artistic choice of how they handled Dawnstar's wings and everything. Those look really cool too.
Big time.
I mean, she looks very traditional, but I love just like the the cool visual effects of those. I think are really neat. I like that this team's working together. We've got Invisible Kid and Dual Damsels working together. There's some comedy moments there that get put in, but it never takes away from the seriousness of this is a battle that they're in, and this is a team working together. And
I love the fact that Arms Fall Off Boy actually did some good job there.
He was great. He was multiple times through the escape sequence. He was great too. Yeah. So I like that he's becoming more effective and more confident in his powers. Whereas before, I was like, they're the stupidest powers in the world. They aren't. They're actually I don't know. I've never seen him like that effective. That was really cool.
I know.
I didn't know we were going to get this. And because I thought, as the story is wrapping up, we're ready for the story to wrap up. And then I realized there's still more film time here.
Yes.
We're going to get a round 2. I so wanted this. This is I don't know, like the writing choice of saying, and why don't we give him another battle with Mon-El?
Yes.
And that punch, the two punches, the two fists going together, being the kickoff to it, I love when we get to see Kara's determination. And against a villain who's equally determined. I mean, this is a great, great battle.
This is someone she doesn't have to pull any punches on.
No,
she can
great.
100% empty full power. And I love that. And again, little subtle battle stuff. I love the fact that it's punching. She grabs him and does the headbutt.
That was awesome.
I love that thing. That's what draws the blood. And again, yes, they do bleed, but you got to have some serious power behind it. You're really seeing how much she's hitting him with. I love that moment.
The sonic boom of the punches.
Yes.
Really cool. Because you're right. They hold back traditionally. And I love that he's pleading with her in the most perverse way. Her having that badge at this point, we see that she's a true police officer there.
Yes. Well, she's a true Kryptonian.
Yeah.
Yes, Krypton, and I love how he's using that. We could bring back Krypton. We could bring back, and no, you can't. Krypton is gone. And I love just that, how you get that realization from her. And again, and I don't know about you, but I was kind of wishing they would tie in the military guild symbol a little bit more in with the future costume. I love her having the big red S on her chest because she is the House of L. But I really did love that badge on her.
Yeah, I did too. Whether she keeps it or not doesn't matter. It was in that sequence. It's something that was earned. It was handed to her by her mother.
Yes.
In the nod and everything. This is a beautiful sequence.
Yeah. When the Legion shows up, I was like, yes, but everything is awesome.
They show up, but everything's already done.
Yeah.
And I love that, now this is going to be a change to the Legion rule for this particular group.
Yeah.
I vote they all get in as full Legionnaires. Yep. I would too. I absolutely would too.
Heck yeah.
This team has proven themselves. And they should be a squad. I mean, listen, you keep training together, and there's something here.
Yes, this team definitely needs to train together. This is one of your team designations because they work well together.
Yeah. Because really, they all, as a team, are complementary, and that part's important. Yeah. This is a good sequence with Brainiac and her. It's this leading to a romance. I get them as a couple. It's hard to establish this, and I've said it multiple times throughout this. You're establishing something in a very short period of time that's believable. This is a believable relationship.
Yes. And in one movie, they 100% have you believing. They 100% built this up nicely.
Yeah.
And again, I love the fact that Brainy's like, hey, if you want, I can replace the machine. It's a bad idea, but I could probably do it.
Yes, it is a bad idea.
Yes. Now, I love when the cast, they start rolling through, and I always watch these things looking who they are, and I write down some names. I do research. Hey, what other characters have they done? 100% was not expecting a mid-credit scene.
Well, here's the good thing here. I mentioned before how I'm like, let's get in the movie. Let's get in the movie. That's no disrespect to any of the cast in there. That's typically how I feel. I'm becoming a lot more, because I will say this is where end credit scenes are really helpful. I watch a lot more credits because of it, and are a lot more respectful of the fact that, oh my gosh, look at all the people that have worked on this. Look at all the talent. At this point, I've gotten look what these people just did. Who did that? Now I'm curious at this point, who is this voice? Who is that voice? This is the part where I really want to see it. And whereas in the beginning, you haven't gotten me yet. You know, there's a difference between the two. Like, it's nice in the beginning to see some big names in the beginning that are associated with it. That's exciting. That's cool and all that. At the end, it's like, oh my God, respect. Yes. Respect. So if I sounded disrespectful in the beginning with that, you can slap me in the face with that one. Probably deserve it. But in the end here, this is the point in time in the film where I'm now feeling look at all the people that were involved in this.
Yes.
Putting together an animated feature like this is not easy to do. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes to pulling this together, a lot of talent that makes this work, and you've got to get very specialized quality talent to put together something like this. And should not be dismissed by any stretch. It was one of the things I was really struck by at the end of this one was we talk so much about DC versus Marvel and quality and quantity of output. This stuff isn't talked about in that conversation, and it should be.
Big time.
This is fantastic.
100%. This really, and again, the animated series, the animated television shows, just that it really does fit in within what we love, and it does really capture that comic book essence and that feeling, that groove, and that vibe. And they did a brilliant job with this. How just the layout, the pacing, the story, the visual side working with the story being told. I was like, man. And then we get this end credits scene. I was like, an end credits scene? Oh, that is cool. And I love how initially it seems like it's just Kara talking to Clark, just letting him know what's going on, with her, what's going on with her and her life. And I was like, oh, that's kind of a neat ending to it, And then you get the ending of it.
Yeah, and this part's great. I do like that we're establishing more of a humanity of Brainiac here, because you've got to make him likable. But yet you don't want to lose the fact that he is that 12th level intellect that we saw earlier on. Yeah. He is going to be much more socially awkward in these situations, yes. Like any of us would be in this sequence, but even more so for him. And he's trying to figure out the right way. Do I shake his hand? Do I do this? Do I do fist bump? Do I do Boy Scout symbol? What do I do?
This is Superman. And I love that Brainy has that reaction that I'm talking to Superman. Oh, boy. And plus he's being introduced as Superman's cousin's boyfriend, so I really got to be on my best behavior. Yeah, that was really awesome. And then we get this Bat story, the Bat and Superman story, and the continuation of the story's not over. The circle is still there,
But the threat's so big that they just got wiped out, didn't they?
Well, I'm or teleportation.
Teleported, maybe?
Teleportation thing.
Okay.
That's my opinion. I don't think they just destroyed Superman and Batman. Just because you can't do that.
Well, but if it's a timey-wimey adventure...
again.
Yeah. What are they doing? I don't know. I'm curious to see what's going to go next. I did look after this in the extras. Is there any kind of trailer for something that's coming next? There's no trailer. They got
Come on, guys.
Here's what I get worried about with all the changes right now going on. It's the only piece. If right. I'm worried about anything, I know there's a lot of changes going on at DC right now. Please pay this off. Please. Yes. I'm begging you, pay this off. Because I want to see where this story's going to go. They're teasing another movie right there. Do not make this a Black Adam. Where I've got to see where this story goes. Yes, I care.
100%.
Dare I? I'm going to say something that might be a little bit blasphemy. I care even more about seeing the sequel to this.
What then? Black Adam?
Don't get me wrong. I'd love to see Black Adam versus Superman. I would, like nobody else. But this story, I'm so invested in this story. I guess I'm kind of at this point accepted. Maybe it's more of it's not a comparison as far as which one do I want more. I've kind of gotten to that stage of acceptance with the Black Adam thing. That's probably a better way to put it at the moment, because I'm like even correcting myself. I'm like, well, no, I do want to see Black Adam versus Superman. What am I talking about? I'm being an idiot. But I will say this is up there in that same category of must see, and there's no reason for this not to be made. This sequel needs to come.
Actually, I'll co-sign you on that one. You know, that I've accepted that we're done with. We're not going to get we're not going to get the Black Adam versus Superman that we want.
Right.
But this is something we 100% could get. And I hate to say this, but they laid out the game plan. There was no mention of Legion. There was no mention of anything.
Well, but could that come before? Remember, the chapter 1 they're laying out really doesn't start till 2024.
True.
So could this come before? So I'm not, is this next year's release?
Yes.
Before all of that. And it would be really smart to release this. And
so what we need to do is we all need to start harassing Gunn. Give us more.
or please let this stuff pay off. Because that's really, I think... Here's the piece that you need to be very careful with stuff like this, is if you want us to jump on board to your new direction, do not leave us dangling. Do not burn us. Do not leave us hanging. I was watching something. It's funny. It's wrestling related. The A&E did the biography series, and it's WWE biographies, and they did the NWO one, and they were talking about the buildup between Hogan and Sting, and how the match between Hogan and Sting went horribly wrong, and they didn't deliver the payoff that people were really looking for. And I would totally agree. Being a huge Sting fan and watching that build for as long as it was, the Starrcade match between the two, because of politics behind the scenes, did not play off the way it should have. It is not the satisfying, like, oh my gosh, celebration that it should have been at the end. And it was a comedy of errors in some of the mistakes that were made there. Some subtle ones that could have been easily adjusted, and we could be having a very different conversation right now. But it was very interesting to see that. And where that equates to this is that was a lack of a payoff. And when you do that, you start to lose your audience.
Yes.
It's important with these things as they make this shift, this new direction, pay things off. I will maintain, I think not paying off Black Adam is a mistake. I think once you put that end credits, they should have removed the end credits scene if they had any intention of doing that. I know that wasn't a known quantity at the time. I get that. But the problem is, once you put that end credits scene out there and you don't pay it off, it's a problem. If you're ending TV series and TV shows without paying them off at the end, it's a problem. You've got to wrap these things up. Let your audience feel like you respect and care about them, whether it's a TV movie, where it's a short thing, whatever you got to do, pay that off. Black Adam and Superman, the best thing they can do right now, even if they're not paying it off in a second Black Adam film, pay it off somewhere. Like and do it beforehand if you can. If there's some way to do it, even if it's an animated thing, it doesn't matter. Whatever you got to do to pay that off, pay that off.
Yes.
Don't leave us hanging, because you leave us hanging, where else are you going to leave us hanging down the road? And that's a danger right now. You might saying we're rebooting right now and you're just trying to disconnect from the past. You can't do that. People don't naturally disconnect from all that. It's all DC. So if you're going to reboot. We're here for you. But show us that you care about the fact that we've been following story. This is a great example of a story I'm invested in right now. This movie in an hour and 23 minutes, they invested me in this world, in this version of the Legion, in this Legion story, and these characters. Now you've left me dangling at the end in a great way, and that's an applause to everybody involved in this. You got me. You did exactly what you're supposed to do with this. You made me say, what are they going to do next? I want to see what they're going to do next. Make sure we see what they're going to do next.
No, big time. And again, think about what I've been saying, how this movie, once again, has got me wanting to watch this stuff, has got me wanting to watch more animated stuff, wanting me to go back, and there's a lot of animated stuff out there that I haven't had a chance to.
You didn't see Green Lantern, did you?
No.
Oh, dude, you gotta watch that being a Jon Stewart fan. Oh, my gosh, do yourself a favor and watch that. It's this level.
Yes. So they're sitting there, and again, they've got a gold mine that they're sitting on. Let's play this out. Pay this out. Give us what we want. Mm-hmm. And again, if they're not going with live action, this is just as good. I'm loving this. I do enjoy this. At the same level, maybe even a little bit over sometimes some of the live action stuff, because you can get away with so much more. And as I said, it does have a more comic book feel to it.
Let me be clear on something on this, too. I want to be clear that I have not heard anything about them not paying this off either. So I don't want to be irresponsible here and make it seem like, oh, no, they're not going to pay this off or anything like that and gloom and doom. I don't mean it that way. I'm protective of this. I mean, I want to see it. So I'm more saying, sure, because we've seen some cancellations recently. That's more of what I'm equating to, not that I've heard anything about them not doing a follow-up to this. I have not heard that at all. What we haven't heard, and it's very common with these animated releases, I haven't heard. We know that there's a Batman coming next. We know there's that crossover with that gaming that's coming up. There's 2 animated releases already on the slate. There's the Batman, the Doom That Came to Gotham. That's next. And there's that, I forget what the name of the gaming platform is. I've got it pre-ordered. But there's another Justice League one that's coming. Crossover.
Right.
So after that, I want to see what's next. What's next? So fingers crossed that we're going to be getting more of this, because I want to see more. It's good stuff. I'm a huge fan of these. I've seen every one of them, and I will say this to anybody listening to this: these are worth seeking out. If this is your first introduction to this, or maybe you haven't dabbled into these animated features. Whether you pick and choose some of your favorite characters and start following those, or you just start grabbing all of them and going through, one of the true joys of being a DC fan has been the quality of these productions. They have been really, really good, and I think have gotten nothing but better as they've gone along, as they've kind of perfected the craft. And that's the only way to say it. This is an example of something that's been a constant evolution. This one, I'm glad we got to talk about this one.
Oh, big time.
Holy caffeine!
I would like to remind everyone about our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434 or drnorge at Skype. RagingBullets@gmail.com is our email address. If you prefer to contact us that way, we love having you part of our show. RagingBullets.com is our show website, and that feeds into our Facebook fan page, and we also send that over to Twitter. So either those methods you prefer to connect with us. We also are proud to be part of an amazing Facebook group community. That's our forum, and it's really the official spot where you find news and information about the show. The people over there are really the ones that put together our Speeding Bullets segments, which will be back next episode. And I want to thank the team over there for continuing to support our podcast. The About Us section of the show website, where you find out all the details on how to connect with us. We are sponsored, as always, by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Jim, what's going on over at DCBService.com?
We have Green Arrow issue 1 of 6, 50% off, only $1.99. We have Superboy, the Man of Tomorrow, issue 1 of 6, 50% off, $1.99. And we have Steel, a celebration of 30 years hardcover, 50% off, only $19.99. Thank you, DCBS.
I feel like a dolt, too. I forgot that was the Counter series, and I'm glad that series is coming. I'm excited for that character. And, I love Out of Death of Superman. That was one of the great things that spun out of it, was the creation of that character. And I'm glad that he's back and we're getting more new stories with him. Over at InStockTrades.com, we have the deals of the week. One of my all-time favorite series is Birds of Prey. The End of the Beginning trade paperback is $39.99, regularly 50% off, only $19.99. The Joker hardcover, Volume 3, which is a great series, $24.99, regularly 50% off, only $12.49. If you missed this is a great way to get these. These hardcovers, absolutely well put together. I want to thank DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our show and ultimately for saving us money. Mr. Seglin, our next episode, we're going to be back and we're going to be talking about Batman, and we're going to be talking about Poison Ivy. So we will see you then.
Bye.
right, you guys. Are you ready to sing your song?
I'd say we are. Yeah, let's sing it now.
Okay, this should be fun. Now get ready for your cue. Okay, Sean?
Okay.
Okay, Jim? Jim? Jim!
Okay. Raging bullets time is here. We talk about what we hold dear. Comic books and TV shows. Superheroes and their clothes. Justice League and so much more. I just love Green Lantern Corps. We talk about the books we've read with spoilers straight ahead.
Okay, fellas, get ready. That was very good, Sean.
Naturally.
Jim, you're a little flat there, so be careful. Jim? Jim? Jim!
Okay. Justice League and so much more. I still love Green Lantern Corps. DC Comics are what we know. The Raging Bullet Show. DC Comics are what we know. The Raging Bullet Show.
Excellent job, guys.
Let's sing it again. Yeah, let's sing it again.
No, that's enough. Let's not push it.
Push it. What is that? Yeah, what are you talking about?
No, I didn't mean anything by that.
I think we did it right
Jim,
there.
how long do you want the song to go?
Look, it's our production.